Hey guys, my name is Nate and I am the family pastor here at South Hills Church Corona, and I'm so excited that you're joining us for Church Online today. If you're new here or you'd like to take a step in your faith and get connected a little bit further, we'd invite you to fill out our Connect card, which you can do by texting the word Connect to 951-476-2550, and an online digital card will be sent to you and you can fill that out. Also, if there's something in which this church has impacted you, a story of what's going on in your life, or maybe how you need prayer, fill that out, let us know, and somebody from our team would love to connect with you this week. This month, we are partnering with Olive Crest again to help these kids that are in these homes that they have by basically doing a reverse trick-or-treating. They might not have the same experience this year, and so we are going to dress up in costume and deliver these bags of candy to them. And so we are asking if you would help donate candy. You can bring it here to church on Sundays or on Tuesdays here at the office. And we are seeking 10,000 plus pieces. So if you'd like to be a part of actually delivering this in costume or packaging them ahead of time, fill out that on the Church Center app and somebody from our team will get a hold of you and let you know about the next steps. But thank you for your generosity for how we continue to do things like this for Olive Crest and others in our community. On Sunday, the 18th, we are hosting family baptisms here on the plaza. If baptism is something that you've considered and wondered about, we'd invite you to make this your opportunity. You know, baptism is a huge deal. It's this outward expression of an inward transformation. It's the things that you feel and know are true in you, and to show that to others around you. And so we want to celebrate you and come alongside of you in this time. And so go to the Church Center app on the events tab, and there is a way that you can register for that event, and somebody from our team will connect with you and walk you through those steps. But we are so excited to celebrate you and come alongside you. And we hope to see you at all of these events happening during Family Month. But thank you so much for tuning in. Get ready for week 2 of our Family Month series.
All these pieces broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed but not forsaken. I've been set free. I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see it now. I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. You take up failures, you take up weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Whoa, I once was lost, but now I'm found.
Hi, my name is Adam Smith, and I'm the campus pastor here at our South Hills Corona campus. And I just want to say once again, welcome to Church Online. And I'm so glad that you decided to tune in today, specifically for this series, which is one of our favorites that we do all year. It's something called Family Month. And the goal is really that we would spend some time focusing on how to have great relationships at the core of our life. You know, all of us have a family, whether we are married or we have kids, whether we are a kid and we're growing up in a family, whether we are remarried or remarried, or maybe hope to someday get married, or maybe we don't even believe in marriage. The reality is we all have a family of some sort, and these people are part of our lives, whether we like it or not. And so how do we have healthy core relationships? Because a lot of us didn't really inherit a lot of tools to be able to do this thing well. And so that's what this series is really ultimately about. And this is week 2. If you didn't get a chance to catch week 1, you can grab hold of that on any of our social media platforms and catch yourself up. But this week will make sense even just in and of itself. And I want to encourage you to write some things down today. Take some notes, capture some things on your iPad, your phone, your computer, a sticky note, whatever you want to do. But capture some things that you want to think about, meditate on, maybe share with a friend, discuss a little bit later, so that this stuff isn't just something that you hear one day, but it's something that actually has an opportunity to transform the life that you live tomorrow and the next day and the next day after. And if you are taking notes today, the title of my message is Keep Your Pants On and Other Life Lessons. Now, I have 3 kids with my wife, Gretchen, and our youngest, his name is Ezekiel. We call him Zeke, or the Zekel Bear. And all 3 of our kids went to the same exact preschool, South Hills Academy. It's actually right here at our church, and it's phenomenal. They do an incredible job, but all of them integrated into school a little bit differently. When we dropped him off the first day of preschool, he was a little bit clingy, but then he ended up going in, and we thought everything was going to be great. And towards the end of the day, you know, my wife, of course, is nervous all day. She wants to check in on him. She resists the impulse. And at the end of the day, she goes to pick him up. And she's relaying this story to me later on when she gets home in the afternoon, that when she went to pick him up, she asked the teacher, how was he? How did he do? And the teacher was like, he did great. He's such a great kid. He was so smiley and helpful and friendly. You know, there was one little thing that was a little bit maybe something you might want to talk to him about. There's the nap time, which we have in the afternoon, right after we have the snack and the recess. And we told all of the kids to get comfortable, and Zeke took his pants off and just laid on the floor, completely spread eagle, and put his hands behind his head and just got ready for nap time. We're like, hey, whoa, hey, whoa, you can't do that. And he fired back with, you said get comfortable. I'm comfortable, which is valid, right? And this wasn't a weird thing in our house because, you know, nap time, the kid takes his pants off, no big deal. He doesn't like sleeping with pants. I mean, can you blame him? I don't like sleeping with pants, okay? It feels restrictive, you know what I mean? And so she said, get comfortable. He took it at face value. He got comfortable. And yet he's getting in trouble for doing something that he had always done, which was incredibly confusing to him. Later we're trying to explain to him, you can take your pants off when you sleep in your own house, but you can't take your pants off if you're sleeping in public. But I think, you know, we all have moments like this. We have these moments where we get in trouble for not wearing pants. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully that's not the case in your life, and you should probably see someone if it does. But I think we do have these moments where we realize that we need to make adjustments to our attitudes or our actions because, you know, some of our impulses aren't in alignment with who we want to be or where we want to go in life. In other words, we kind of have this epiphany that not everything that feels natural is helpful. And I wonder if you've ever, you know, sort of looked at the way that you or your family instinctively react or think about or do certain things, and you just thought to yourself, I'm not sure this is who I want to be. I mean, it's definitely who I am. It's how I've always been, how we've always been, but I don't think that this is me at my best. And, this initial awareness that a lot of us have is helpful. But the big question is, like, once you've observed that, like, what do you do with it? Because, you and I, we all know people who they don't really like who they are, but they don't really seem to be doing much of anything to change it. Why is that? We tend to mindlessly do whatever we're used to, even if we don't want to. Have you noticed this about yourself? Like, it's kind of the way your brain works. Like, your brain just wants what's familiar. Familiar feels safe, but sometimes what feels safe is ultimately unhealthy and unhelpful. Like, what happens when what feels most familiar in your family, the family that you came up in, maybe the family that you have just started, what if that thing is verbally cutting each other down? Or maybe it's like stuffing your feelings, or passive aggressively like prodding each other, or angrily exploding because you've held something in for so long, or cowering to the unpredictable moods of like a single person in your family. Maybe it's the thing that you're used to is living in debt, or demanding your own way, or prioritizing accomplishment over connection, or like whatever the thing is that you don't want to admit is kind of true about you and your family. It's weird, like, when you do this stuff, it's bad, but it's also strangely comforting. It's toxic, but also familiar. And, at least it doesn't require you to go through the pain and uncertainty of fighting for something new. So we just all keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. And we don't just repeat them, we pass them on to our family, specifically our kids. Now, before you beat yourself up because you feel like, man, this is definitely me, and I feel like it's just me and my dumb family, I just want you to know that it's not. Like, this is a human problem that has always existed. And in fact, the ancient Exodus story has long functioned as a way to understand this thing about ourselves and even begin to help us architect a plan forward. Exodus, for those of you who may not know, is the second book in what we think to be the Old Testament. And it is this storyline of the ancient Israelite people. And for a period of time, they had been enslaved to the Egyptians. And God sets them free from slavery. But even though they were free, they weren't technically slaves. There was still a lot of oppression in their lives. Like, they'd lived in Egypt for so long that they picked up all these customs and habits and attitudes and thought patterns that were sabotaging who they were made to be. And these things were deeply ingrained in them because they'd lived in this place, in this way, for generation after generation. And the truth about people is, like, we all imitate what we're immersed in, right? We develop impulses and instincts based on our environment. And so basically, in the place we're going to pick up this story, like, God's best for these people wasn't their current culture's default settings. And, some of us have probably realized the same thing when it comes to our kids, that God's best for them and their life isn't consistent with our current culture's default settings. So the question is, like, what do you do with that? But here's what God did for them then. He invites Moses, who's like their leader, their father figure of this new family of God. And he invites Moses up on this mountain, and he gives him a set of guidelines to give to the people. We think of them as the 10 Commandments, right? And I just want to read these to you. And yet, while you're listening, I want you to mull this question over in your mind. Like, why tell these exact 10 things to these particular people at this precise moment? Like, maybe you've never wondered that before. You're just like, I don't know, it's just like a list of 10 things that you should do. But like, why these exact 10 things? Let's critically think together. Like, we don't really do that a lot in our culture, but it's gonna be fun, trust me. Exodus chapter 20, verse 3 says this: "You must not have any other God but me. You must not make for yourself an idol of any kind. You must not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Honor your father and mother. You must not murder. You must not commit adultery." Keep your pants on. Another life lessons. "You must not steal. You must not testify falsely against your neighbor. You must not covet your neighbor's house. You must not covet your neighbor's wife, servants, ox or donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor." So if you're God parenting these particular people, why tell them these exact 10 things at this precise moment? Yes, like, these 10 things are significant in and of themselves, and in a lot of ways they can totally stand on their own. But from a cultural perspective, they're very specific guidelines to help point this group of people in a different direction than their current culture was taking them. These weren't random ideas. They're cultural critiques, a way of saying in that time and place, we're going to be different. Like, our family is going to live differently. We're going to live by design, not by default. For example, the Egyptians, this is the culture that these people came from. They worshiped many gods. There's like a god for everything. And they believed that these gods didn't really care about you, but you had to appease them in order to avoid suffering in that particular area of your life. But this God is telling these people in this moment that there is one God, that God is priority, and that life works better when you prioritize him. In Egypt, there was no Sabbath, right? Especially for slaves, right? You worked every day of the week in this culture because you were only worth whatever you could produce today. And yet, this God who's parenting these people is saying, no, remember the Sabbath. Like, 6 days you can do your work, but one day do nothing, and remember that, like, your worth is not determined by your work, by what you produce. That the whole world is not hinged on the stuff that you do. That there's something going on that's bigger than you, and you're loved and accepted just as you are. In Egyptian culture, like, you could take pretty much whatever you wanted to from someone who was less powerful, cultured, or educated than you, as long as you had the means to do so. Like, in this culture, might made right. But these people, they weren't going to steal anything from anybody. They were going to aim their lives in a different direction. They were going to live according to a higher calling, and they needed a path to get there. And that's where the 10 Commandments ultimately came from. Now, I know that we all hate rules, and I'm right there with you. But the truth of the matter is, people need parameters. Like, parameters aren't the point, but they point us in the right direction. You know, we need boundaries to border the path that we're on so that we actually get where we intend to go, as opposed to just ending up wherever our impulses are aimed at. And here's how this applies to you and your family. To be who God has called you to be, you're going to have to learn to live in opposition to some of the unhealthy instincts that you've inherited. One researcher summarized what years of helicopter parenting, which is like the parenting style of like always hovering nearby and monitoring everything your kids do. Karaoke parenting, which is where you want to befriend and be exactly like your kids. And lawnmower parenting, which is like mowing anyone over who gets in the way of the goals of your children. Like, one researcher summarized what all this parenting and years, decades of even this parenting have done to the kids in our culture. They feel entitled to special treatment because they've always been told they were special. They feel unsafe, anxious, and afraid because of their parents' high alert behavior about everything going on in culture. They believe that they're fragile and can't handle adversity, obstacles, or opposition because they've never been allowed to. And they end up embracing the narrative that the world is full of evil people actively trying to harm them, so they've always got to be on high alert. Like, I'm not sure that these impulses and instincts are helping us. And so if we see these traits in our kids or even in ourselves, like what do we do to uproot them? I think to start with, like if you don't know where you're trying to go, you won't know if you're getting any closer. Like if you don't know what track you're on, you won't know when you've gotten off track. In other words, like we need something to run towards, not just something to run from. And thanks to our outrage and offense-fueled culture, like all of us, we can scroll through social media and easily see what everyone we know is against. But sadly, like I feel like you've got to do a little bit of digging to find out what they're for. What are you and your family aiming at? Like who do you want to be? Like, what do you want to be about? Like, what do you want to define you? What do you hope that people associate with you? And all those things that you hope are true about you, is that what people think of when they think of you? You need to have a clear picture of what you're for, not just what you're against. And for followers of Christ, becoming like Christ is the goal. Being a Christian is about modeling Jesus in the way we live, not just making it into heaven when we die. This old adage that got passed around when I was a teenager is unbelievably accurate. Like, what would Jesus do if he were you? Because values have to be actionable. Like, they have to be aimed at a way of being, not just a way of believing. James, the brother of Jesus, echoes this idea this way. What good is it if you say you have faith, but you don't show it by your actions? Like, can that kind of faith save anyone? And then verse 17, he says, faith by itself isn't enough unless it produces good deeds. It's dead and useless. He's saying, like, you can have or claim to have a certain belief system, but if it doesn't impact your behavior, it's hollow, it's empty, it's ineffective. You can claim to have a certain value system as a family, but if it doesn't impact the way that you live and talk and think and treat each other day to day, if it doesn't worm its way into your parenting or shape the path that your family's on, it's not really what you value. What might it look like to point our kids in a different direction than culture is taking them? Like, what would it look like to point our families in a different direction than maybe even our upbringing or our family history took us in? I want to give you just 4 practical suggestions that I think will help us as parents counteract the unhealth in our culture. God gave 10 commandments. I'm not that smart or spiritual. I've only got 4 ideas. They're all my phrasing, but they're all rooted in the New Testament letters and the words of Jesus. And I want you to write these down and wrestle with what they could mean in the context of your family. The first thing I would say is this: be as predictable as possible. You know, kids need consistency, especially in this season, right? Where everything feels so incredibly uncertain. Like, we know that our kids need this because a lot of us are like, I need this, right? Kids need to know what to count on because so much changes consistently. Couples divorce, people move, jobs are lost, friends are fickle, shows that they love get canceled. And the truth of the matter is, like, there's no safety or sense of safety without stability. I think this is why a lot of kids struggle with anxiety. I wonder what it would look like in your family if you aimed at being a positive, predictable presence in your kids' lives. Like, you're not going to get it perfect, but what if this was an area that you really focused on? If we're emotionally unstable and immature and inconsistent and our kids never know what to expect from us, those are the impulses that we're passing along. Those are the things that they're going to pick up, that are going to be part of their story. I think this idea is what Jesus is talking about when he tells his disciples in Matthew chapter 5, verse 37, like, just say a simple, yes, I will, or no, I won't. Just be the kind of person that when you say you're going to do something, you do it. That when you say like, that's not going to work for me, and if this happens, like you're going to get this consequence, you follow through. The second suggestion I would make is move from expectations to equations. There's this idea in the book of Galatians chapter 6 that says you can't mock the justice of God. You'll always harvest what you plant. Another translation says you'll reap what you sow. So let's not get tired of doing what's good. At just the right time, we'll reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Now, what does that mean, especially in conjunction with this idea of moving from expectations to equations? All of it is saying this, that the universe functions a certain way. Your actions have consequences, all of them. And I know that sounds intimidating, but it's actually really good news because it means that you have some control over your story. You don't have complete control, but you have some control. And here's what I mean by equation. If you do this, this is the benefit. If you do that, this is the consequence. And life is full of equations. We need to help our kids see that. Like you can do whatever you want to do in life. This is true. But then you've got to accept the consequence for the choice that you've made. And then this is really the hard part as a parent. Then you've got to enforce those consequences. Like you have to let them feel the weight of their bad decision making. You can't bail them out. It's learning to understand and architect healthy equations that enable us to mature and move toward adulthood. Like if we don't understand that our behavior, our decision making has causes and effects in our relationships, in our jobs, in the world as a whole, we don't know how to make wise decisions, right? And if we're told that certain things have consequences, but then once the consequence comes for us, we get bailed out by a parent or a relative, then we never experience the pain of those consequences in a safe environment. And so we never fully learn the lesson. And it turns us into somebody we don't want to be. The third thing I would tell you is don't freak out. I think this is what James, the brother of Jesus, is talking about when he says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. A lot of us, this is the opposite of our parenting style. As soon as we get a glimpse of something that we think our kid did or said and we don't like it, whatever, we stop listening, we immediately get angry, and we put them in their place. We actually need to let our kids take appropriate risks. But that means that sometimes they're gonna choose poorly. And when they choose something that seems like weird or crazy, you've got to stay calm. Like when somebody has an outsized reaction to our decision or maybe our confession that we make, you don't really learn the lesson. You just learn never to include them in that sort of a decision. If we don't react emotionally though, but we talk respectfully to our kids, we earn the right to help them think through the long-term implications of their choices. And this is ultimately what it is to grow up. Like this is a parent's job to not to make every choice for our kids, but to help equip them to think long-term, big picture, and high road about their life. And we do this by not freaking out, which is hard to do. Like there are a lot of times where my wife and I will like talk to our kids about something that they heard or that they did or they were thinking about doing. And inside we want to freak out, but we know it's not going to help the situation. This is where your maturity comes in handy with your kids. We have the calm conversation. We listen. We ask a lot of questions. We're slow to speak. We help them reason out where they're going, where this might end, what the equation actually is, what the consequences could be. And then we go in our room by ourselves, the two of us, and then we freak out. And that's the way it's supposed to go. And the fourth thing that I would suggest is this: affirm your kids accurately and specifically. We live in a culture where everything is awesome, just like the Lego song. You get a trophy just for showing up, participating, putting on the uniform, and eating oranges on the bench. But if everything is awesome, then nothing is awesome. And in the real world, not everything is awesome. Like you damage your credibility by telling your kids that they're great at something that they're not great at. The more helpful thing is to be honest, but encouraging. Point out their blind spots and their bright spots. and focus on affirming effort, which is controllable, instead of outcomes, which aren't. A way to do this is to say, I like how you did this. I like your approach to that. Like, I like how you put like a lot of effort and energy into trying to figure this thing out. Like, I like how you prioritize this thing. I like how you treated that person, as opposed to like just saying things that are outcome oriented, that are often really uncontrollable. Like, you're smart, you're pretty, you won, right? These are things that like are not really things that they can consistently produce or in control of. And it sets them up to believe that if I'm not this in this moment, I'm a failure, that I can't be accepted, that I did something wrong. I think this is a lot of what the Apostle Paul is talking about when he says in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. I think when we think of foul or abusive language, we think of like cursing our kids out. Most of us are smart enough to gather that that's probably not a good idea. I think sometimes foul or abusive language can be setting our kids up for failure, for hyping them about something that is not true about their lives. That's not true about their personality. That's not true about their potential. Sometimes that can be abusive because we don't give them the gift of reality. If you were to read the rest of the Old Testament, you would unravel the long, drawn out, very slow moving story of God leading the children of Israel to the promised land. And it wasn't just this journey from one physical place to another, but from one set of values to another, from one way of being to another. It was this journey that he was leading them on, from impulsivity to maturity. And like our kids with us, they fought him every single step of the way, which is part of the comfort I get out of reading scripture, that like, I'm not alone in this, that the frustration I experience trying to lead my kids is the same frustration oftentimes that God experiences when he's trying to lead me. But God wasn't trying to win their approval. He was trying to help them realize their potential. He kept pointing to who they wanted to be and the path they were on and the parameters that framed it and the progress that they were making. And he tried to encourage them to stay focused. God's boundaries weren't random or without reason. And yours as a parent or as a family, they shouldn't be either. Parameters ought to have a higher purpose. Providing our families with a particular path isn't about lording over every little thing they should or shouldn't do. It's about helping them discover who they're destined to be and take control of their story in a way that's helpful and healthy. And a lot of us, like, we can imagine how our lives would be so incredibly different if we were parented in this way. And I just want to tell you, like, I really believe that regardless of what kind of upbringing you had, that your parents did the best they could with what they knew at the time. And that's sometimes hard to embrace because their best in a lot of ways wasn't helpful. It wasn't healthy, but you're here now. What are you going to do with it? Where are you going to go from here? What kind of relationships are you going to have? Who are you going to be? What are you going to be about? What direction is your life going to move in? This is why I absolutely believe in the way of Jesus, because I think that trusting our lives to Jesus and mimicking and modeling the way of Jesus for ourselves and our family is the best way forward. And this is part of the reason why we need this spiritual community, to keep us on the right path and to help us point our families in the right direction. And this is what I want to pray into your life today. I can imagine that you, like me and my wife, look at our family during this season and it does feel chaotic and crazy. And we have this vague idea of what we value, but we need parameters to keep us on the right path. But ultimately, whatever those things look like, their purpose is to point your life in the direction of Jesus. Would you just bow your head wherever you find yourself today as we pray together? God, I am so grateful for the life that you have given us. God, we've all got families, and some of us, we took a lot of great things from our family and a lot of not so great things. We've kind of come away with these impulses and these ways of being that really are not helping us to be who we want to be who you've called us to be. God, I pray that you would help us to forgive our families for the dysfunction that they may have created in our lives. And God, I pray that you would help us to trust you and to follow you in creating something better for our families. God, I pray that you would lead and guide us forward, that you would help us to put the right parameters in place in our families. And God, that you would help us to become like you, to know what to do, to look like and talk like and think like Jesus in our everyday lives, out in public and in the privacy of our own homes. And God, as we do, may we make the world and the people we care most about better in the process. We love you, Jesus, in your name. Amen. Now, before we close out our service today, I just want to invite you to do a couple things. And the first is, if you prayed with me and man, maybe today there was kind of this realization of, I really have not trusted my life or my family or my marriage or, my dating relationship, my relationship to my parents. I really have not given these things over to God. And maybe today is the first time you've chosen to do that, or the first time in a long time, or the first time you were serious about it. And we want to know about that because we want to provide you with some practical help moving forward. And you can let us know by texting the word connect to the number on the bottom of your screen. And a connect card will be sent back to you. You can fill out a couple brief pieces of information so we know how to get back in touch with you. We'd love to send you a free Bible. We'd love to send you a reading plan and talk to you about maybe some next steps about putting some spiritual community around you and moving a little bit closer step by step on the path that God has for you in life to really realize who you're supposed to be, the best version of you. And then the other thing I want to invite you to do today is to give with us. Your giving makes a massive difference. In fact, if it wasn't for your consistent giving, you wouldn't be watching this right now. Like, it's what enables us to film online content, to have in-person services outdoors right now, to be able to host a whole slew of growth groups, classes, activities, things for students and kids, all things that we're doing as the state opens up and we have more and more availability to do more and more things safely. And if anything about our church has impacted you, it's because somebody else gave and paid it forward for you. And I want to encourage you to have a habit of doing that in your life. We believe in something called tithing here at South Hills, which is taking the first and best of everything we get, picking a percentage. The one that's most commonly used in scripture is 10, and giving to God through our local church, trusting that God is going to leverage those resources and that God is going to do something with them that changes the landscape of the world that we live in, that changes the souls of people, that impacts them both now and in eternity. And I want to thank you for doing that and challenge you, if you have not taken that next step in your faith, to begin experimenting with a consistent giving practice. You can give through our website, southhills.org/give. You can give through our Church Center app. By downloading the app to your phone, you can select South Hills, select the Corona campus, and you can set up one-time giving or automatic consistent giving, which is the way my wife and I do it. You can give through our text to give function, or you can mail in your giving to the address on your screen, or show up even in person to one of our in-person outdoor services at 9 a.m. or 6 p.m. every single Sunday. But however you choose to give, the point is to give, to be a part of what God is doing, to not just be somebody who is a consumer of it, but somebody who is a contributor to it. And when you do, it changes everything. Last week in our live services, we got to have out someone from Olive Crest. It's this organization that we've done a lot of projects with, and you have been able to bless them in so many different ways. And we're going to continue to partner with this organization, but I wanted you to hear a little bit about what they do and why it's such a big deal. And so as you're giving today, I want you to check out this brief interview with my wife, Gretchen, who is the outreach director here on our campus, with one of the directors of Olive Crest. Check this out.
Hi, my name is Gretchen, and I am the community director here at South Hills in Corona. And we wanted to take a few moments each week of this month, as we're in Family Month, to talk about some of our strategic outreach partners and the way that they impact families in our community. So today specifically, we're going to be talking with Austin from Olive Crest. And Austin, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about what Olive Crest does and why it's important and impacting families in the community.
Thanks, Gretchen. My name's Austin Bowman. I'm our community engagement director at Olive Crest for our inland and desert regions. Basically, Olive Crest works within the crisis of the child welfare system. So we do that in a couple different ways. One is in prevention, one is in intervention, and then one is through transition. So there's a lot of different ways for people to be involved, but basically we want to insert ourselves into that crisis because we want to care for the vulnerable and most needy children and families in our communities. So the reason that we consider the child welfare crisis an actual crisis is because it really is the interwoven thread into a lot of the societal problems that we see within our city and within our nation right now. We like to use the 60% statistics, that 60% of children that age out of the foster care system actually end up homeless within the first year. 60% of individuals that are in the foster care system, in the child welfare system, will be incarcerated at some point, and then 60% of individuals that are rescued from human trafficking come from the child welfare system. So that's the reason that we call the child welfare system a crisis, is because there is such a great need.
Thank you so much, Austin, for sharing about Olive Crest. And we've actually been partnering with them for a few months now, and we have lots of opportunities coming up. We've actually provided backpacks for kids as they started schools. We provided some lawn toys and items for them to play with at the group homes. And we also just finished our bedding and towel drive for them as well. Coming up here, we hope to collect 10,000 pieces of candy that we can create over 500 individual bags of candy to hand out to all of the kids in the system in our area. And why is that important? Why do we want to give them candy?
I mean, obviously this pandemic has been really difficult for all of us, but when we think of the most vulnerable, it affects them even kind of at a greater length. And so we want to provide as much normalcy as we can within this season. And we know a lot of the times during our harvest season, we do some different gift baskets, we do different candy baskets. We also have an event for them that it's not going to be possible this year with obviously social distancing and everything. So we want to do everything we can to let them know they're cared for, they're loved, they're seen. And anytime that a church does a donation, we make sure that all of our kids, all of our families know exactly who it comes from. Some of the main problems and the reasons why some of these families get into these situations is just from isolation. So the more that we can remind them that you're seen, you're loved, there are people that are caring for you, rooting you on, makes a world of difference.
I love that so much. And if you want to be a part of donating candy, bringing it, you can drop it off at the church on a Sunday or on a Tuesday. You could also send some to the church through Amazon. And if you want to drop off the candy after it's already made into little baggies, dressed up in costume with a friend or maybe your family, you can sign up on the Church Center app, and we'd love to have you participate that way as well. Austin, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for Olive Crest and all that you guys do for families in our community, and we look forward to partnering with you even more in the coming months.
Thanks, South Hills.
Thank you for watching. We hope that you learned and laughed along the way today. And maybe if something prompted your heart to say, you know what, I need to find out a little bit more, or I want to say yes to Jesus, we invite you to do something about that. To fill out our Connect card, text the word Connect to 951-476-2550. And that will be a way to kind of prompt somebody from our team to reach out to you and listen to your story, what's going on. But I encourage you, this is a big thing. If there's something stirring in your heart, for you to do something about it. And so please reach out, connect with us. We'd love to come alongside you, to support you, to resource you. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hope that you had a great day and enjoyed this. If there was something here that was really neat for you, make sure you share that with family and friends on YouTube or Facebook or Vimeo, wherever you're watching this. Make sure you're following us on social media so you can stay up to date with things. If you do join us for any of the in-person events, make sure you RSVP on the Church Center app. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great day. We love you. See you guys soon.